Good morning and welcome to World News, coming to you live from Warsaw. I'm Saria Strzemska. And we begin with an update on Ukraine. The Russian army has launched a triple missile attack on Ukraine's Chernihiv. The regional military administration reported several severely damaged buildings and 5 injured in the attack. According to available information, the 5 people injured as a result of the missile strike are currently in the local hospital. Their condition is not life-threatening. It was also reported that 1 person was killed in the attacks and more than 10 private houses were damaged or destroyed. Ukrainian authorities were forced to temporarily suspend the supply of electricity and gas to the affected areas to avoid accidents caused by gas leaks. There is no better time for Polish leadership in the European Union, given the challenging moment in history. That's according to the President of the European Council, António Costa, and Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk. Both leaders spoke at the grand inauguration of the Polish presidency of the Council of the EU that took place in Warsaw last night.
Europe is lucky that it is Poland that is taking over the presidency at this challenging time in our history. Here in Poland, we are well aware that resilience, hope, self-confidence must be rediscovered. We must once again discover the meaning of freedom, Europe's true identity. The sources of Europe's greatness, freedom, independence, our culture, all of this is worth the effort. Some say it's worth the ultimate sacrifice. Let's do all that's in our power for Europe and Poland not to have to pay the highest price for freedom, strength, independence. Let's do all we can for Europe to be strong again.
There is no better time for Polish leadership in the European Union, because the vitality of Polish democracy and its sense of national identity make the European Union stronger, because Poland is a source of resilience at a time when authoritarianism and populism threaten our values.
Polish farmers gathered in Warsaw on Friday, protesting EU and domestic policies they argue are failing the agricultural sector. This comes despite farming being one of the greatest beneficiaries of Poland's EU accession.
A new year and a new farmers' protest in Poland. The date is no coincidence. The protests were planned on the day of the formal inauguration of Poland's presidency of the Council of the European Union, when a number of high-ranking EU officials will arrive in Warsaw.
For the farming sector, the situation is looking grim. The Green Deal, the Mercosur trade agreement, it doesn't benefit farming. We hope Mercosur won't be signed and implemented. It would significantly harm our farming sector, forcing us to slowly shut down agriculture and livestock farming.
With more than 20 various farmers' organizations joining the protests, they were united under a single slogan: 5 times stop. The farmers opposed the European Union's trade agreement with a group of South American countries known as Mercosur, the EU's Green Deal policies, the import of Ukrainian agricultural products into Poland, as well as the destruction of Polish forests and hunting, and the perceived shutting down of the Polish economy. The EU's deal with Mercosur, finalized after over 25 years of negotiations, requires approval from both the member states as well as the European Parliament. However, experts say the farmers' fears are exaggerated.
The things that are most impactful for the Polish agriculture sector, poultry and beef in this case. So this is something that could be competitive to our exports. They are far smaller than what Poland currently exports to the EU.
The Mercosur deal is the latest point of controversy voiced by the farmers, as previous protests focused primarily on the implementation of the EU's Green Deal regulations and the Ukrainian agricultural imports, threatening the Polish market with dumping prices.
What the current president of the Commission and the Parliament majority want is a destruction of farming in Europe, and that includes our Polish farming. In fact, it's the German policy which is being implemented, not the farmer's policy, especially not that of the Polish farmer.
Official data, however, does not indicate a serious threat to Polish farmers from EU initiatives. In fact, quite the opposite. More than 30% of the European funds Poland has received since its accession to the bloc have been geared towards agriculture, with 2/3 of that money going straight to farmers in the form of direct payments. At the same time, Poland has become an agricultural superpower, with Polish food exports reaching 52 billion euros, a tenfold rise since 2004.
Poland's Development Minister Katarzyna Pełczyńska has outlined priorities for EU funding, emphasizing stronger local governance, alignment with European reforms and a focus on national security. Here's more.
Cohesion funds have always been important to Poland, with Warsaw receiving the lion's share of the funds across the EU. The changing focus areas will mirror that of the rotating EU presidency, the ministers stressed at a press conference on Friday.
An important priority for the future architecture of the funds must be security, and there must be investments linked to the border with very difficult neighbors, of Poland and the EU as a whole. Our border is an EU border. Security and investments on this border are investments in the security of the EU.
With increasing threats leveled at the EU by Russia, eastern flank nations like Poland have beefed up their borders in recent months with major surveillance hardware and military equipment, notably Poland's Shield East, initiated by Prime Minister Tusk. Usually, EU cohesion policy is utilized to modernize energy and infrastructure projects in an EU member state, but geopolitical threats caused a push on realigning these funds so that the EU may be ready for any scenario.
One of them is larger, more ambitious investments in both dual-use infrastructure, that is infrastructure that can be used in the peace times, but if the need comes, can also be used for military needs, and this is especially important in regions bordering the eastern external border of the European Union.
Poland has been the biggest beneficiary of EU regional funds in the bloc, with over 76 billion euros allocated for the 2021 to 2027 period. Although no funds have been directly used for defense joint procurement or purchasing ammunition, Warsaw, at the helm of the EU rotating presidency, will do its utmost to change that.
We are also going to be looking into a discussion on how to perhaps loosen the very tight today rules on how to invest further into purely defensive capabilities of the European Union, perhaps supporting ammunitions, perhaps supporting defense structures and defense constructions in member states.
The European Union has long supported growth with its regional funds, helping raise prosperity across its new member states. Now, with an aggressive Russia on its doorstep, that support may now also be used to make the bloc stronger, and in line with the Polish presidency's motto, Security Europe. With the now pro-EU Poland and a new commission in Brussels, the question is, can Europe deliver?
The Prime Minister of Greenland says he will push for greater independence from its former colonial ruler, Denmark. Prime Minister of Greenland made the comments during an address on Friday. They come after US President-elect Donald Trump shared his renewed interest in the territory last month, which is part of Denmark. Trump has said Greenland is strategically important to the US. The territory was a Danish colony until 1953, but is now self-governing. Greenland's independence movement has gained traction over the past few years, in part due to revelations of misconduct by Danish authorities during the 20th century. Russian gas ceased passing through Ukraine on January 1st, leaving Moldova at risk of an energy crisis. Residents of Moldova's breakaway enclave of Transnistria have already lost hot water and central heating. What consequences could this halt in gas deliveries have for Moldova in the long run? Here's a report.
The end of the gas deal has not only been an issue for Slovakia, but also sent shockwaves across the non-EU part of Europe.
Russia has stopped the transit of gas through Ukraine. This concerns the direction of the European Union. It also concerns Transnistria.
Home to nearly 500,000 people, Transnistria separated from Moldova in 1992 and has seen a strong Russian presence since. It has also been the powerhouse for Moldova.
Russia used to supply Transnistria with around 2 billion cubic meters of natural gas annually. And this gas was actually used for the gas-fired power plant located in Transnistria that produced electricity not only for domestic needs, so not only for Transnistria needs,
but for the entire country.
Exactly, but for the entire country.
The termination of Russian gas supplies and Russia's unwillingness to use an alternative transit route wreaked havoc on Transnistria, with people's homes turning cold and energy companies recommending citizens seal windows and dress warmly. The region's economy as a whole has taken heavy pummeling, according to the Moldovan ruling party's MP Radu Marian.
And now they lost, half of the revenue. And so economically, the region has seen a degradation in the last 10 years.
Moldova said it has secured its energy supplies for the remainder of the winter. The country's pro-European president, Maia Sandu, took to the platform X to remark that the situation in Transnistria, located on the left side of the Dnistru River, has been orchestrated by Russia to stir up trouble.
By cutting off gas to the left bank of the Dnistru, the Kremlin seeks to destabilize Moldova and derail our European path. Yet, we remain focused on advancing Moldova's energy diversification and resilience.
And yet, some experts indicate there's a hidden Russian agenda behind pulling the plug on gas supplies to Transnistria ahead of Moldova's general election in July 2025. But this plan might go awry for the Kremlin, potentially bringing Transnistria closer to unification with Moldova.
I think the war has accelerated the reintegration. We already started the gradual economic reintegration. Most of the population there has Moldovan citizenship, 95%. They are using our health services, our public services. 80% of the companies there, they are trading either with Moldovan side or European Union.
It remains uncertain how this situation is going to evolve. The people of Transnistria seem to be tilting away from Russia, but the pro-Russian authorities in Transnistria might hinder the process. What remains clear, however, is that Moldova has its eyes set on the European path, an effort marked by the recent symbolic move to replace the US dollar with the euro as the country's reference currency.
A court in Finland has refused an application to release an oil tanker that's at the center of cable-cutting allegations in the Baltic Sea. The Eagle S was seized on suspicion that it had ruptured full telecom cables and the East Link 2 Estonia to Finland power cable by dragging its anchor on Christmas Day. The vessel was carrying Russian oil at the time of the incident. Officials believe the Eagle S is part of Moscow's so-called shadow fleet of aging tankers that are used to evade sanctions on the sale of Russian oil. Baltic countries are on alert after a series of power cables, gas pipelines and data links were damaged following Russia's invasion of Ukraine nearly 3 years ago. Police are now questioning the crew of the Eagle S, which is being held near Finland's port of Porvoo. The Prime Minister of Montenegro has announced measures to curb illegal weapons after a gunman's rampage killed 12 people this week. Milojko Spajic said searches will be carried out for illegal weapons and people in possession will have a 2-month deadline to turn the weapons in before facing legal consequences.
If, within the next 2 months, individuals in possession of illegal firearms do not surrender them, they will face severe penalties. For now, everyone can return illegal firearms without any legal consequences. And that's it. 2 months. We have concluded that a new law on firearms will be adopted, and upon its enactment, now I'm referring to legal firearms, individuals who currently hold permits will have to undergo new checks by January 1st, 2026. These checks will include security, psychological and other health evaluations. These evaluations will be much stricter than they have been so far.
And that's a wrap for our news bulletin, but World Talks are coming up next, so do stay with us.